was a comedian in the 1920s, very famous, very popular, and he had one of the first major celebrity scandals. So it has this, I guess, historic value as well. Because at this point, celebrity scandals are a major part of the news, and they're reported just like as if they're, political figures or something like that. But anyway, so let's begin. The title of this is called Fatty's Fate. Okay. Roscoe Arbuckle's bottom hurt. September 5th, 1921 should have been a great day for the famous movie spent $700,000 for attorneys, Arbuckle finally agreed to remove the restraints for his third trial, which was scheduled for April 1922. The jury deliberated for only 5 minutes, and before coming out, they decided to clear Arbuckle. They spent 4 of those 5 minutes composing a statement denouncing the great injustice that had befallen him. Fatty was free, but his career was in tatters. The Arbuckle case coincided with other Hollywood scandals, including the murder of director William Desmond Taylor and the drug-related death of director Wallace Reed. Fearing a public backlash, producers eventually barred Arbuckle from the screen altogether. He later shot some pictures under pseudonyms, but was largely forgotten by the time he died of a heart attack in 1933, so only a couple of years later. So let's see what the pictures have. So this is Fatty Arbuckle, and it just says silent film comedian Fatty Arbuckle. Okay, Fatty Arbuckle is a deceptively boyish man-child, and then next to him is Virginia Rapp, who was a showgirl. So it's only a profile of her, so we don't know what she really looked like. But anyway, it was an interesting case because this was, like I said, the first big scandal. I guess Hollywood scandal. Hollywood was always very carefully, all of these characters, they had these public images which exist today, but at that time, because you had the Prohibition and there was a evangelical resurgence within the country, everybody wanted to promote themselves as being family men or, some sort of upstanding moral citizens. And the truth is that in Hollywood, anything goes. These were show people, and they were used to a certain kind of lifestyle, and it was completely different from the public image that they had. So whenever that, issues from that life kind of weaseled its way up into the forefront, people were shocked because it was so different from whatever they thought of these actors. And I think because it was a new thing, like, to have actors almost be like, not really political figures, but public figures in a way that they had not been before, really just because of the printing press and newspapers having widespread distribution. And they were doing so much more publicity, worldwide publicity, something that actors had actually never done in the past. You would have stage actors or vaudeville actors, they would be famous within the cities that they lived, but if they went to another city, nobody knew who they were. So this was a film brought in a completely different experience for people, because suddenly these individuals took on a larger than life persona. Not only were they seen in this larger than life, screen, that they were this huge image, but then just because of all of the worldwide press that they would do, they became famous in a way that actors had never become famous before. And since then, I think it's been this sort of public fascination with these people that we never really had privy into their lives, because they just were not made famous in the same way that they have been since the invention of film. And even though this was early in film history, it didn't take very long. Films, I guess, they had the early those Nickelodeons, those 5-cent kind of Nickelodeons, I think in 1905. I don't know the dates. I think the beginning of when the first film short was made in 1896 in either France, I think it was France, and then it went in the Kino films in Russia, started to be used for political propaganda and different things, but then in the United States, they were primarily used for those sorts of Nickelodeons, where they would, look in inside a box and turn the handle. And all of these vaudeville stars became these, sensations because the film companies that started producing movies realized that they needed to publicize these actors, and because they now had newspapers all over the world, they could do it in a way that had never been done before. And so when there was a scandal, it also became an international story. As this was not, I don't really know. I remember seeing I can't remember if it was on E or what channel, but there was a story about this. And at that time, they were not portraying the female as a negative character. They were portraying Fatty Arbuckle that way. But as you can see, like in the 1920s, the point of view was completely different. If you portrayed a female as a sort of damsel in distress, they were willing to take that image. But if she was portrayed as a sort of vixen character or someone who was had poor morals or something like that, they were ready to shun her from society. And it was just something that I guess still exists to this day, but not to the extreme. Like this was an extreme case where in the first two trials, he did not allow that very personal information about her life to come out, and so her lawyers were able to present that image, and then the jury didn't know what to make of that case because, according to them, he had attacked this girl when she was inebriated. But when he did allow just her personal information and nothing to do with the case per se, it was her past experiences in life, whatever she had gone through, that alone tainted the jury against her, to the point that any story that her lawyers told of what Arbuckle might have done became irrelevant. Her history, her past, completely overshadowed that. And so that's interesting. I mean, that still happens in juries today because the news, it covers so much, and people, whether even if they're sequestered, they've still heard the information, they're still aware of it. But in this case, it was there was not the same sort of protection for the jury. So it was a situation where morality was at the forefront. So as soon as she was portrayed as an immoral woman, that was it. Arbuckle had won. It's interesting that he attempted to protect her, though, for the first two trials. Now, I don't really know what happened. The story that was presented in that show was that he had done something to her with a Coke bottle, but now that I'm reading that her friend, who was like a professional extortionist who used to, I guess, blackmail people, she kept changing her story. I think probably what happened was this girl was drunk, and Arbuckle probably, thought it wasn't a big deal to take advantage of her, and he was a heavy-set man, and it's possible that his weight alone may have done something. I don't really know. She may have had a previous problem, but whatever the case is, her lifestyle and the fact that she had gotten into this situation where she was in a position that she's at these kinds of parties where there's drugs and alcohol, it just made whatever was going on worse. And I don't know if she was already having pain, why she didn't go to the hospital once the morphine had worn off. It also shows how ill-trained the doctors were, because just seeing a girl lying there, they just give her a shot of morphine rather than taking her to the hospital. So I don't know if that was a request by Arbuckle not to create a scandal or what happens, but it's interesting that it was 4 days later, and at that time she actually should have probably gone. And her friend is unbelievable that she then, wants to make money off of this and sell newspaper. She was giving all kinds of interviews to these yellow journals that Hearst used to run. So it's an interesting scenario because there were a lot of people trying to take advantage of the situation. I do think that Arbuckle is responsible in some way, and that's probably why he was trying to protect her in those. He felt bad for what had happened, because it wouldn't have happened if he had not had this, so I'm sure that he felt guilty, and who knows if he did something more to her, and that was the reason that she went. But in any case, it's an interesting case. I also found it interesting that he was making $1 million in 1920. That's like huge amounts of money for a comedian, but he must have been a huge box office success, and they were willing to pay that kind of money. I thought that Elvis was the first to make $1 million, but I guess it was Fatty Arbuckle. I think Elvis's was for a single picture. Arbuckle apparently had some kind of a deal, but like I said, the moral image that they tried to present to the public, his image was damaged completely, and so he could